Every exaggeration comes at a cost. And today, the mirror of reality presents the bill. It is the day to discover where you have crossed the subtle line between ambitious expansion and reckless dispersal. In the last few days, perhaps weeks, a lot has grown. Ideas that seemed brilliant, expectations that inflated, promises made in the heat of a contagious optimism. There was a feeling that anything was possible, that limits were just illusions to be overcome by the force of will. But one must have the courage to admit a sober truth. Not everything that grows is progress. Sometimes it's just a lack of control, well disguised as progress. Today is about returning to your center before the excess throws you completely off track. This is not about an external force judging you. There is no universe teaching lessons. It is the reflection of your own life showing you, with relentless clarity, how much you have inflated yourself. It is the direct feedback from your actions, the result of your unchecked ambitions. This video is a pause for sobriety, an invitation to honest self-assessment, to deflate what is ego and strengthen what is essential. It is the moment to look at what you have built in this period of euphoria and ask, does this have a solid foundation, or is it just a house of cards waiting for a gust of wind? To begin this process of recalibration, the first action is a declaration of intent. Use the space below to affirm your commitment to balance and truth. Write, I return to my center. If this message resonates with you, hit the hyper button below. Right under the video, near the comments, next to the like button. It's like a super like, helping more people feel this energy. There is a mental state that is often confused with the pinnacle of power and enlightenment. Euphoria. It is that electric feeling that all doors are open, that all ideas are genius, that failure is a distant impossibility. It is a peak of optimism so intense that it seems in itself a form of truth. But maturity teaches us an austere lesson. When everything seems easy and possible, that is not a signal to accelerate. It is a warning sign. The ego, in its incessant search for validation and grandiosity, loves to confuse euphoria with enlightenment. Enlightenment, true clarity, is a calm, centered, and silent state. It needs no fanfare. It is the quiet certainty that is born of presence, of accepting reality as it is. Euphoria, on the other hand, is noisy. It is expansive, contagious, and desperate for an audience. It is not born of presence, but of a fantastical projection of the future. It is the anticipation of victory, the celebration of the trophy, before the race has even begun. Clarity feels like a deep, still lake. Euphoria feels like a giant wave about to break. The astrological tension between the Sun and Jupiter acts as an amplifier for this feeling of too much power. The Sun represents our center, our identity, our ego. Jupiter represents the principle of expansion, of growth, of abundance. When these two planets are in harmony, the result is healthy confidence and sustained growth. But when they are in tension, as they are now, the result is inflation. Jupiter pours its expansive energy onto the ego, and the ego, without the structure of discipline or reality to contain it, inflates like a balloon. It believes its own hype, its own invincibility. That is why the ideas born in this state seem so perfect. They have not been tested by reality. The promises that are made seem so easy. They have not been confronted with the price of effort. But real power, the power that builds legacies and withstands the test of time, has a different nature. Real power does not shout, does not show off, does not promise. It sustains. It is the deep root of the tree that withstands the wind, not the lush foliage that draws attention. It is the daily discipline of the athlete, not the celebration on the podium. It is the ability to remain steadfast and coherent when the euphoria passes and the hard work begins. And today, the test is simple. Look at your life, your projects, your recent ambitions, and ask yourself with relentless honesty, what in you can hold its own weight? Which of your ideas have a foundation of skill, of resources, of a realistic plan, and which depend only on the fragile energy of your own enthusiasm to stay standing? Euphoria is a fuel that burns fast and leaves only ashes. Clarity is a source of energy that is self-renewing. Today's task is not to kill your ambition, but to purify it. It is to separate the gold of your true clarity from the false shine of your euphoria. Our society glorifies effort. We have been taught to worship at the altar of productivity, to measure our worth by the volume of our output, and to see exhaustion as a badge of honor. A full schedule has become a status symbol, and a pause, a synonym for failure. But today's energy, with its relentless clarity, invites us to question this dogma. It forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Not all productivity is progress. There is a type of tiredness that is noble. It is the satisfying exhaustion that comes after focused work, after effort with purpose, after an output that aligns us with our mission. It is the tiredness that leads to a deep and restorative sleep. But there is another type of tiredness, a corrosive one, that is born not of purpose, but of vanity. There are fatigues born from the vanity of wanting more, of being more, of proving more. It is the tiredness of over-effort, of work that has gone too far. Today's transit, the tension between the Sun and Jupiter, exposes precisely this exaggeration, masked as discipline. It is the energy that illuminates our tendency to use work as a form of self-validation. It is the impulse to accept one more project, not because it inspires us, but to prove to others and to ourselves that we are capable. It is the need to fill every minute of the day with tasks, not because they are essential, but because silence and stillness confront us with a void that we fear. It is the mentality of someone trying to prove their worth by the volume of what they deliver, instead of the quality of what they create. The euphoria of the Sun-Jupiter square lies to us. It tells us that more is better. More projects, more meetings, more work hours. But the sober truth that emerges today is the opposite. Today, less is intelligence. Over-effort, productivity for productivity's sake, is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of misalignment. It is a symptom that you are trying to compensate with volume for what you lack in clarity. You are running in 10 different directions because you are not sure which is the right path, hoping that one of them, by chance, will lead you to your destination. True clarity, however, is not found in agitation, but in the pause. Clarity resides in the essential that you, in your rush to prove your worth, have been ignoring. The essential may be that difficult conversation you have been postponing. It may be that single, central project that truly matters, but has been neglected in favor of smaller, more urgent tasks. It may be simply rest, the pause, the time to do nothing, to allow the noise to settle, and for your true priority to emerge from the silence. Therefore, today's invitation is to conduct an honest audit of your effort. Look at your to-do list, look at your schedule, and ask for each item, is this essential or is it just noise? Is this moving me in the direction of my purpose, or is it just keeping me busy? Maturity is not the ability to do everything. It is the wisdom of knowing what not to do. Today, the most productive act you can perform is to bravely choose to do less. The trap of exaggeration, driven by the tension between the Sun and Jupiter, is not limited to the material world of work and finance. Its most subtle, most cunning, and perhaps most dangerous manifestation occurs precisely in the territory where we feel safest, our search for purpose. The trap of excess also strikes, and with tremendous force, those who seek a spiritual path. After we learn to identify the ego in its most obvious disguises, vanity, greed, arrogance, it reappears smarter and more sophisticated than ever, dressed in the clothes of virtue. It appropriates the language of the soul and transforms our most sacred quest into its latest performance. We call this phenomenon the spiritual ego. It manifests through a set of seemingly noble desires. You feel an immense impulse to share your truth, to create a community, to guide others. The words that echo in your mind are, I want to serve, I want to help, I want to expand consciousness, I want to have an impact. These are beautiful aspirations, but today's energy, with its demand for brutal honesty, forces us to go one step deeper and ask the question the spiritual ego fears most. But why? What is the true root, the primary motivation behind this desire to serve? Be relentlessly honest with yourself. The answer to that why reveals everything. If the answer, deep down, is about recognition, it is the ego cross-dressing as a mission. If the desire to help comes with a secret need to be seen as the helper, the healer, the guide, the sage. If the will to expand consciousness is linked to the fantasy of having followers, of being admired, of becoming an authority, if your service depends on an audience to applaud it, then what you call purpose may just be your need for importance wearing a spiritual mask. It is the ego inflated by Jupiter, seeking on the stage of the spiritual world the validation it cannot find in the silence of its own being. This spiritual ego is insatiable. It measures its worth by the number of likes, by the quantity of people it has helped, by the size of its platform. It confuses volume with value, visibility with virtue, and in the process, it corrupts the very essence of growth. Because true growth is silent. The tree makes no noise growing its roots. Deep healing happens in the dark, in solitude, far from the world's gaze. Wisdom is not accumulated to be displayed, but to be lived. True service needs no audience to be real. Often, the most spiritual act we can perform is not to guide the masses, but to be fully present, in silence, for the pain of a single friend. The energy of the Sun square Jupiter exposes the hypocrisy of this state. It shows you the distance between your persona of a spiritual being and your actual inner state. You preach peace, but live in constant anxiety about your reach. You talk about detachment, but check your stats every 10 minutes. You teach about authenticity, but are you performing a version of yourself that you believe others will admire? Today's tension makes this dissonance unbearable. The antidote is not to stop wanting to serve or to have a purpose. It is to purify the intention. The sobriety that this transit demands is to strip your mission of all need for recognition. It is to find joy in the act of serving itself, and not in its result or its reception. It is to be willing to do the work, even if no one ever knows it was you. It is to focus on being the embodiment of your message, instead of just its messenger. Because the truth is this: your greatest service to the world is not what you say or do, but the quality of the presence you cultivate in silence. A single human being, truly at peace with themselves, does more to balance the planet's energy than 1,000 prophets shouting their truths from a mountaintop. The human psyche has an almost infinite capacity for self-delusion. We can live for months, even years, operating from a base of euphoria, sustaining an inflated image of ourselves, fueled by empty promises and grand plans that never leave the paper. We can become masters at convincing others and ourselves of our own imminent greatness. But there are moments when life, in its relentless wisdom, decides that the lesson of reality can no longer be postponed. And the tension between the Sun and Jupiter creates precisely one of those moments. When Jupiter, the principle of expansion, puts tension on the Sun, our center of identity, life gives us back the reflection of our own inflation. This reflection is not subtle. It is clear, it is direct, and often it is uncomfortable. Suddenly, the promises you made at the height of your optimism begin to show their lack of substance. The project you guaranteed would be ready proves to be impossibly behind schedule. The help you offered so generously is now called upon, and you realize you do not have the resources of time or of energy to fulfill it. The empty words become an embarrassing echo. You hear yourself repeating the same grand intentions, but your own voice sounds hollow to you because your actions have given them no weight. Your credibility, first in the eyes of others and then more painfully in your own, begins to erode. The goals that don't close become brutally evident. That ambition to double your income, to transform your body, to write a book in 3 months. All the plans, born of euphoria without the company of strategy and discipline, are now revealed for what they always were: fantasies. Reality, with its cold and factual logic, presents you with the numbers, the deadlines, the physical limitations, and the house of cards you built in your mind begins to crumble. The purpose of this process is not to punish. There is no external entity conspiring for your failure. This is a self-regulation mechanism of the psyche. It is a process of deflation. Life is offering you honest and direct feedback. It is telling you this version of yourself that you have been projecting is unsustainable. This ambition has no roots. This level of expansion is not coherent with your current structure. It is a severe but necessary invitation to return to your real size, to return to the exact size of what is coherent with who you are now, and not with who you fantasize about being in the future. The temptation, when confronted with this mirror, is to fall into shame or self-criticism. It is to see yourself as a failure, a fraud, but that would be to miss the lesson completely. The lesson is not about your worth, but about your strategy. The invitation is to look at this reflection not with judgment, but with the cold curiosity of a strategist analyzing a map. Where did I overestimate my abilities? Where did my ambition outpace my discipline? Where did I confuse enthusiasm with a real plan? Accepting this feedback is an act of immense maturity. It is the ability to look at your own failure, not as an identity, but as a piece of data. It is the moment to stop blaming external circumstances and to take responsibility for your own lack of realism. This process of deflation, while painful for the ego, is immensely liberating for the soul. It frees you from the unbearable burden of having to sustain an image that is not real. It returns you to solidity, to truth. And it is from this place of truth, from this new zero point of humility and clarity, that a plan for real, sustained, and truly powerful growth can finally begin to be built. After being confronted with the honest reflection of your own inflation, the immature response is to fall into the paralysis of shame, or, at the opposite extreme, into stubborn denial. The strategist's response, however, is to accept the feedback from the battlefield and adjust the plan. This is the moment to revise the plan. It is not a humiliating retreat, but a tactical regrouping. It is not about abandoning your ambition, but about honoring it with a strategy that is worthy of it. Today's energy does not ask you to cut everything and give up. It asks you to adjust the weight of each thing, to become the master of your own energetic economy. The first step in this process is the radical acceptance that your resources, your time, your mental energy, your willpower are finite. The Jupiterian fantasy that you have an inexhaustible source of energy has led you to disperse your forces across too many battlefronts. You have been waging wars in territories that are not strategically important simply for the vanity of conquering them. The result is an exhausted army, a kingdom without focus, and a series of insignificant victories that do not contribute to your main goal. Maturity is the ability to say, I cannot do everything, so I will do what truly matters, and I will do it with excellence. For this, an inventory is needed. Take a sheet of paper, literally or metaphorically, and list all your current commitments, all the projects, all the goals, all the promises, all the obligations that are consuming your energy. Be relentlessly honest. Include not only work projects, but also personal projects, relationships that require maintenance, habits you are trying to build. Look at this list not with the optimism of your euphoric self, but with the cold realism of a resource manager. Now the work of discernment begins. For each item on the list, ask the key question. Is this essential, or is it just vanity noise? Vanity noise is everything you do to look busy, to impress others, to feed your image as a successful and capable person. It's the projects that sound good in conversation, but do not feed your soul. It's the social commitments you accept for fear of being left out, and not for a genuine desire for connection. It's the goals that society told you you should want, and not the ones your heart truly desires. Vanity noise is heavy, it drains your energy, and it offers a very low return on investment. The essential, on the other hand, is what resonates with your deepest purpose. It is the few and crucial tasks that, if well executed, will create 80% of your progress. It is the relationships that genuinely nourish and support you. It is the projects that, although they may be difficult, leave you with a feeling of alignment and strength. The essential is light, even when it is challenging. It generates more energy than it consumes. Your task today is to take a red pen and, with the precision of a surgeon, begin to cut out the noise. This will require courage. It will require you to disappoint some people. It will require you to abandon certain images you have built of yourself. Each cut will be a blow to your inflated ego. But with each cut, you will feel an immense release. You will feel your energy, once dispersed, returning to you, concentrating, becoming potent again. What remains on your list after this purge strengthens your purpose. It is your true battlefront. What is removed gives you back your peace, your focus, your power. This act of reorganization is not a sign of failure. It is the sign of the higher strategic intelligence. Maturity is knowing when to stop before collapse. It is the ability to recognize that uncontrolled expansion is a recipe for ruin, and that sometimes the most powerful move we can make is not to advance, but to retreat, to regroup, and to choose to fight only the battles that will lead us to the victory that truly matters. Our culture is obsessed with expansion. We are bombarded with a message that success is synonymous with more followers, more projects, more income, more experiences. The idea of being limitless has become our modern gospel. In this context, the act of containing oneself, of deliberately choosing not to go further, is often seen as a sign of weakness, of a lack of ambition, or worse, as giving up. But the final and most sophisticated lesson that today's energy offers us is precisely the opposite. To contain oneself is not to give up. It is the most elegant and powerful act of self-mastery. Imagine a river without banks, without limits, that spreads across the plain, becomes a swamp. Its water is vast, but it is shallow, stagnant, and powerless. It has no direction, Now imagine the same volume of water contained by strong, well-defined banks. The river becomes deep, focused, and immensely powerful. Its force is such that it can carve valleys and move mountains. The banks, the limits, did not diminish the water's power. On the contrary, they were what created it, what gave it a purpose and a direction. Your energy works the same way. When dispersed across 1,000 interests and ambitions, it becomes a swamp of unrealized potential. When you consciously create banks for it, through the reorganization of priorities we discussed, you transform it into a river of focused power. Today, the tension between the Sun and Jupiter teaches us the beauty of the limit. The Jupiterian invitation for more is confronted with the solar need to maintain a center, an identity, an integrity. The result of this tension, when navigated with awareness, is the wisdom of doing less, but with total presence. We live in the illusion that multitasking is a sign of efficiency. In reality, it is a state of dispersed presence. It is responding to an email while on a call, thinking about dinner while playing with a child, planning the future while living the present. In each of these moments, your life force is fractured. Your attention is divided. You are doing many things, but you are not truly present in any of them. Your effectiveness is low, and your impact is weak. The act of containing oneself is the decision to bring all your energy to a single point. It is the difference between a light bulb, which spreads its light diffusely throughout a room, and a laser, which concentrates the same amount of energy into a single beam, so powerful it can cut steel. By choosing to do one thing at a time, with your full and undivided attention, you cease to be the light bulb and become the laser. The conversation you have with your total presence has the power to heal a relationship. The hour of work you perform in a state of absolute focus produces more value than an entire day of distracted multitasking. The meal you eat with gratitude and mindfulness nourishes your body and your soul in a way that eating hastily never could. This is the power and elegance of containment. It is the recognition that your presence is your most valuable resource, and the refusal to waste it. It is the self-mastery of saying no to 99 good ideas in order to say one powerful and total yes to a single great idea. In the end, today's journey leads us to this conclusion. Whoever masters their own excess governs their own destiny. The ultimate power does not lie in the ability to have everything, to do everything, to be everything to everyone. It lies in the wisdom of choosing what is essential, of committing to it completely, and of having the strength to release all the rest. This is not about playing a small game. It is about playing your true game, and only your game, with a level of mastery and presence that makes you invincible. Today's lesson is a lesson in mastery. It is the recognition that not all expansion is evolution. There are crucial moments on our journey when to grow, paradoxically, means to reduce, to order, to simplify. It is the act of pruning the tree so that its fruits can grow stronger. Today's energy did not come to diminish you, but to refine you, to teach you the difference between the noisy power of euphoria and the silent strength of sustainability. True strength, as we have seen, lies in the delicate balance between ambition and sobriety, between the desire to reach for the stars and the wisdom of keeping one's feet firmly planted on the ground. It is the integrity of aligning your promises with your actions, your dreams with your discipline. Remember, the final and most liberating message of this day: you do not need to prove anything to anyone. Your race is only against your own lack of presence. Your worth is not measured by the volume of what you produce, but by the coherence of your being. You only need to be whole If this message has brought you clarity and a new sense of balance, anchor this perception, like this video, as a commitment to your own integrity. Share it with someone who also needs to find strength in sobriety. To seal this journey back home, declare in the comments, "I return to my center." Don't forget to subscribe. The path of self-mastery is a daily practice, and we will continue to walk it together.